Hello everybody, this is going to be the last video on this Atwater Kent A54. I'm going to share with you what I've done to get it working, some of the troubleshooting that I did, and what I've learned about this project in general. So we're going to start with a walkthrough on the top. So you'll see here that this volume control, which I've explained to you I had to take apart and fix, it's not functioning as a typical volume control, and there's a really simple reason for that. This radio is so old it doesn't have an AVC, which is basically an automatic volume control. So if a radio station is close, it's going to come in extremely loud, and there's really not much you can do about it. If it's weaker, it's going to be lower. So the volume control on this thing, as far as I can tell, is really not a traditional volume control. I've taken it apart again. I've ohmed it. I've checked it. I don't have any dead spots on the wiper. I've got it connected exactly as it states in the schematic, and there are some stations that it does get a little lower, and I'm just going to chalk it up as that's what it is. Now, perhaps I'm wrong, and someone will correct me, and I'm cool with that. I like that, but that's what I'm going to do with the volume control. Here you'll see I do have a replacement dial that I got from Radio Days a long time ago, and that's been installed correctly. You'll see that I have these electrolytic cans on. They're basically just empty and for show. And you'll see these tube shields, which I've gotten, which I had to rewrap in foil because all the foil was gone. And you'll see right down there, I have a wire solder to them, which I've ensured has connectivity to the foil. And I have that coming up front here to a ground. Okay, and I've got the same thing on this other 57 tube, which is another foil wrap tube, and again I've got a ground wire right there running all the way out to the front. Okay, my other tubes are installed. My 2A5 is there, obviously, and my 80, and well, that's standard. And on this side there is a shield here, which is again for noise. Let's flip it over on the other side and take a look. Okay, so here's the underside, and in my opinion, not the neatest job I could have done. But however, the radio does work, and I've kept the wires as close to the bottom of the chassis as I could. This is the wire that comes off of the volume control and wraps around the antenna wire. So I've got that in place underneath. It doesn't connect, it just wraps around it, according to the schematic. And you'll see that I've used a lot of terminal blocks in this thing. So I've got one here, and I've got one there, and I've got them all over the place. That's the way I chose to do it. Now, why did I have to do that? Because if you remember, this was a rip out from scratch. So I had to choose which way the wires would run and what path they would take. And I may or may not have been efficient when I did that, but for me that was the way to learn. And it's the first time that I've actually followed a schematic from start to finish and was able to get the radio working on the first shot. The first time I tried to use it, as you recall, I had an issue where I was getting that high-pitched squeal. That was because of this connection right here, which is a ground. This entire terminal block is grounds. So I installed a ground that I can use for connecting all of these things. This connection right here was loose. Wasn't disconnected, but I would move it and I would feel a little bit of a flap there. So I resoldered it, and that squealing went away. You'll also notice that I put in a 3-prong cord here. I didn't have a catch here. So what I did was I took this tie wrap and I crazy glued it to the wire, and it's not going to go anywhere. No one's going to pull it. I've also installed the ground to ground, so I've added a little bit of a safety feature. So I am going to use a 3-prong cord on this thing. And that's been connected correctly. And you'll see here, I've got all these capacitors in place. This is my 4 microfarad electrolytic, and there's my 8 underneath there. And in general, I've got everything connected, and it works really well. Just to give you a recap of the schematic for one last time, you'll see that I've got everything marked correctly. Here's the volume control that I was talking about. Here's T1, and there's one wire that goes to the center of the volume control, and then there's one here that goes to the variable capacitor. Okay, and you'll see that everything else is connected All the orange is there. And I know I'm going a little fast here, but there's really not much exciting here. Everything has been connected. Okay? So it's also been aligned, by the way. So the next step is going to be to install this in the chassis, and let's see what it looks like when we're done there. So let me go do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, you'll see the radio has been installed in the cabinet, and there's my speaker. Right? That's a nice, really nice speaker. It's been installed in the cabinet, and we're ready to give it a fire up. So let's check that. Alright, so here's the front of the radio, and you'll see here the plaque that I mentioned earlier in the series says a 944, which is the Cathedral model, and this is an 854, and that's what was installed on this thing when it was new, I imagine. And then you'll see here is the tuning dial, and this is the tone knob. This cabinet has a little bit of wear, but I'm going to leave it that way because it looks better that way. And you'll see there's some nice inlays in the veneer. Very nice work. So let's turn it on and see what happens. We got some dial light. That's good. In my house, I have an AM radio station. I picked up a little box on eBay for like $10, and you connect it to something, and it displays, it plays a radio station throughout your house, about 300 feet. So I have it actually connected to an FM radio. So I'm listening to an FM station right there. That's what you're hearing. Now this is kind of late at night here in Jacksonville, and there's not a lot of AM stations that are still on. Well, them go off the air at night. That's probably all I'm going to pick up right now. Tone knob works. That's what we got. So the radio is in place. I know exactly what's causing that squeal. That's an easy fix. So that's it for this series. I hope somebody learned something from it. I've got something else coming up soon that's going to be more interesting. I've got an old amplifier from the 50s. It was a kit made by Knight, and I'm going to convert it into a guitar amp. And I'm going to videotape that series as well. So that's it for now. That's it. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and I thank everybody for your help during this progress. All right, take care. This is Ron.